Will my fork break if I put too big of a rotor on it? So the big thing with the rotor on your fork, so I have heard this before, that putting a bigger rotor can potentially break your fork or break the mounting tabs. And really that comes from leverage is what that comes from. It's not so much the braking power, it's the leverage it puts on everything. So let me show you. So the first one we'll look at is my Norton here. So the fork on here is made for a 203 millimeter rotor, which is on here. So you can see the caliper mounts directly into the fork, and you can see it's pretty well tucked into where the fork is. So it's kind of lined up perfectly to keep it nice and tucked in there. So then we'll look over here at my road bike, just because it's the best example I have right now. So you can see the road bike has a spacer in here to adapt from pretty much like 140 millimeter up to 160 millimeter up here. So you can see it pushes that caliper out a little bit of ways from the fork. And as you get larger and larger rotor size, you're going to need a larger adapter to push that farther away, which then pushes that rotor farther away as well. So what really happens is you're applying a bunch of leverage farther away from your fork. So you're applying a lot of pressure onto your mounting points right here as you're braking on that rotor that's essentially way out here is where it's going to be versus the 160 millimeter. You're going to be out here somewhere. So you're applying a lot of leverage. That's what really can cause problems on there. I will say most forks have a recommended max rotor size on there for that case. A lot of times that has to do with clearance more is what the big deal is. Clearance of if the rotor will even fit in there, but there is a possibility of over-rotoring your bike too much to the point where it's going to cause extra fatigue on your mounting points right here. Now, have I personally seen it happen? No. Have I heard of it happening? No. And seen pictures? Yes, I've seen both of those. So I've never had a problem with over-rotoring a bike. I don't think I've ever really had to do it or done it in that case, but it is definitely a possibility out there, especially with lower quality forks. Really where you got to look out for things like that and just the quality they're manufactured at. But it is possible to do. Just be careful with what you're doing.